So, anybody? Like I said, y'all get over there. Cash App Lucretia Hughes 44. Cash App Lucretia Hughes 44. Cash App Lucretia Hughes. Yeah, go give me a long guy and I say, there we go. Hey, Kathleen. So, everybody, our next guest came all the way from Maryland. Now, if you haven't been paying attention to the politics in Maryland right now, there's a very heated race because y'all got an idiot of a governor. Well, we have the next sitting governor that's coming up in 2026. Mr. John, go ahead and introduce yourself to everyone.
Lucretia, thank you. I'm John Myrick, and I'm the Republican candidate for governor of the state of Maryland.
How you feel to be around all these guns?
I love it.
Yeah,
It's like being a kid.
Got a lot of restrictions on gun rights.
Yeah, they do, but it's like being a kid in a candy store down here. This is great. I love it.
Did you go around and feel some, caress them, and call them George?
Oh, yeah.
Did you
Oh, yeah.
actually try to did you buy one?
No, because I can't get back on the airplane with them.
Exactly.
So,
So that means you would have to drive. Now, you know,
Yes.
you got a lot of footage down here surrounded by guns, and more guns. Do you feel like that's going to be a talking point to the left and your opponent because you stand more for our rights and they don't?
I mean, it could be, but the bottom line there is, the Second Amendment is part of our U.S. Constitution, and as the governor of Maryland, I am not only honor bound, but I am legally bound to uphold and defend the U.S. Constitution and the Constitution of the state of Maryland. And that means all of it. You don't get to pick and choose which parts of it you like and which parts you don't. You've got to enforce it all.
Now, what are some policies that you would like to see change from what has happened so far? Do you think you can reverse a lot of it?
Yes, I think a lot of the problems in Maryland are easily reversible, quite frankly. It just takes somebody who, first off, cares enough to do it, who's not looking to use the office as a stepping stone for something else, as our current governor is. And it also takes somebody to apply some common sense and decent judgment. And I think I bring that to the table. Fiscal responsibility, key example. Our current governor took a $5.5 billion surplus 24 months ago and has run us into a $3.5 billion deficit in just 2 years.
Can you explain how he even did that?
I wish I could. And what's more important is he can't, and he won't. Either he can't or he won't.
That's a lot of money to blow through, sir.
Yeah, now we do know that 2.9 billion of that last year was spent on unlawful aliens.
He just did something very ridiculous Friday. Was it Friday?
It was.
I thought the oath of office for any governor would be to uphold for their state constitution, and their citizens within.
Indeed.
How did he come out here Friday to say he is sticking up for illegals over the citizens of Maryland?
That is a question that I called his office after I saw that press release go out. I called his office and I left a message for him because you can't talk to a human being when you call our governor's office. Now again, that will change once I'm governor. But right now, when you call the governor's office, you get to leave a voicemail. So I left a, shall we say, fairly tersely worded voicemail for the governor, asking him pretty much that same question. What are you thinking? This individual is an unlawful criminal alien who has a history of being a member of a designated terrorist organization. And you are upholding, or they're thinking that you are upholding his rights over the rights of people in Maryland. We've had 3 women in the past 28 months murdered at the hands of illegal aliens in Maryland alone. Where's his concern for their families and for those victims?
Right. Or even for the taxpayers.
Or for the taxpayers of Maryland, for that matter. None whatsoever. This has got to stop. 76% of Marylanders, according to the latest polls, want all unlawful aliens deported from the state of Maryland. Now, it's not just the criminal aliens. They want all of them gone. 76%. How do you ignore 76% of your population?
Maybe they're not looking at the polls. Maybe they're not caring about what the constituent says.
It's clear they don't care about what the constituents say. I mean,
Then how is he trying to run for president of the United States if he can't even handle his own state?
again, an excellent question. But again, you know, when you look at other people who have presidential aspirations, people like Gavin Newsom in California, and we know what a train wreck California is as a state. Gavin Newsom's run them into the ground too. So if that's the model that he's using, I understand his point of view. I do. I guess you don't have to be a good governor to think that you can be a good president, although I think one goes hand in hand.
But Maryland isn't a poor state.
No,
When it
Maryland,
comes to the taxes and everything else, I don't understand how any governor would want to spend willy-nilly. Oh, that was some country. Spend willy-nilly the surplus to be in a deficit, and then you got to go back to the constituents and put more taxes on their backs.
they passed the largest tax increase in Maryland history during this legislative session. Nearly $2 billion of new taxes, $1 billion of that on businesses in the state of Maryland. He's going to bankrupt the state doing this. They're already talking about next year's budget deficit already being $5 billion. Where's that money going to come from?
Yes. 'Cause
I don't know.
The feds are, President Trump ain't giving it to you.
No, and again, you've got a governor who says he can't work with this president. Well, the federal government is Maryland's largest employer. 320,000 Marylanders get their paychecks from the federal government. So if you can't work with our largest employer, you better figure it out, or you better step aside and let somebody who can work with them do it.
Absolutely.
Because we can't keep hemorrhaging federal jobs. We have lost project after project after project, millions upon millions of dollars coming into the state from federal cuts because he can't work with this president. Bureau of Engraving and Printing, the people that make our money, were supposed to move from Washington, D.C. to suburban Maryland. $1.9 billion project, canceled. FBI was supposed to move their headquarters out from D.C. to Greenbelt, Maryland, about 3 miles from my house. 29,000 jobs, tens of millions of dollars in tax revenues, canceled. National Institute of Health is headquartered in Rockville, Maryland. They've lost 20,000 jobs out of NIH since the Trump administration took charge.
And he can't work.
He can't work with our largest employer. We keep hemorrhaging these jobs. What are these people going to do for work? Because there's no private sector jobs for them to do in Maryland, so they're going to have to move. Well, what happens when they move? You lose those tax dollars.
Yes, you do. And it's not friendly to businesses. So instead of talking about your opposition, what are your goals? What do you want to see to bless the citizens of Maryland?
Well, clearly the first thing I want to see is an accounting of where our money's being spent. I have been an advocate for that long before there was a Doge. I want to see a line-by-line accounting of Maryland state budget to find out where our tax dollars are going, because Maryland taxpayers have the right to know. They have the right to know where their money's being spent. And where there is waste, we will cut it. Where there is fraud, I will prosecute it, because nobody steals Marylanders' money on my dime. That's not going to happen. Secondly, I want to repeal some of these ridiculous business taxes that they have put on the people of Maryland. A great example of that, one of our state delegates, Democrat state delegates, is the vice chair of our Economic Matters Committee. Now, these are the people that write tax laws.
Right.
Okay, business tax laws. He owns a small IT company in southern Maryland that services the federal government. Last month, he moved his company to Virginia, and he publicly said he did it because he can't afford to keep it in Maryland because of business taxes.
But
These are the taxes he writes and he voted for. But he moved his business out because he can't afford the taxes that he voted for.
So what about the regular citizens?
What about the rest of the companies? We have a major business in Maryland called the McCormick Spice Company. Maybe you've heard of them.
Oh, I use their product.
Okay. Old Bay Seasoning is as Maryland gets. It goes on steamed crabs. It goes in crab cakes.
No, that's not
goes
what
on
you said.
seafood.
You said they put it pretty much in everything.
They put Old Bay on Old Bay in Maryland. Okay, it is as Maryland as it gets, and that company has been in Maryland for 140 years. Last month, McCormick Spice Company announced that they are considering moving to Virginia.
Oh.
This is one of the longest standing businesses in the state of Maryland, and they said it was because of the business tax environment in the state of Maryland that they can no longer afford to stay in our state. That is criminal.
It is.
And that's going to cost us millions of dollars in tax revenue and hundreds, if not thousands, of jobs. We can't afford that. I also want to see the public schools fixed.
Yes. Because now that we don't have a department, well, we kind of got a Department of Education, but it's
We
thrown
do.
back to the state.
Which is where I think it should be to begin with, okay? I mean, education, in my opinion, has always been a state issue. But in Maryland, we spend more than 37 other states in the union on our students every year. We spend about $20,000 a kid per capita across the state. But our 8th and 4th graders read and do math at below the national average.
Wow.
So we're not getting a good return on our investment. And according to the State Board of Education, only 25% of that money is making it into the classroom.
So where the rest of it? Bureaucrats?
Administrative and overhead.
How are you going to try to streamline it?
We are going to take another look at we have what we call the blueprint for education in Maryland right now. It was passed about 3 years ago, and it mandates that we dump billions of dollars into the education system. Clearly that's not solving the problem. So we want to repeal this blueprint, and we want to look at putting together a plan that first off involves teachers and parents helping to make the decisions so that we can come up with a plan that will educate our students without bankrupting the state of Maryland.
Only 20-something% goes to the children. The rest go to pencil pushers.
Yeah. I mean, for example, in the county where I live in a county called Prince George's County. It's just outside of Washington, D.C. Our Board of Education says that they for every teacher in the classroom, they have one administrative position.
So you got equal amount of overhead to equal amount of school teachers.
Yeah. Right. How's that helping? How's that helping our kids? It's
How
not.
about if we had one per child instead of one per teacher?
When I grew up, and I went to Maryland public schools, I went to school in Hartford County in the northeast part of the state. When I went to school, there was one school administrator for every 8 teachers in the classroom. And I got a halfway decent education. I think I turned out okay.
I think we did good.
Yeah, my wife kind of agrees. Yeah, so, she doesn't think I'm that big of an idiot. So, yeah. But we can do better because we're shortchanging not only our students and we're killing their future, we're also shortchanging our state because what business in its right mind is going to hire a Maryland high school graduate if they can't read their high school diploma?
You're not going to get rid of the, I guess they call it exit testing to see what they have accomplished in high school?
Doesn't matter. Baltimore City Public Schools right now, according to the latest information, they have 0% of their graduates in Baltimore City Public Schools who can pass that test. But they get a high school diploma anyway.
But you're still setting them up for failure.
You're absolutely setting them up for failure. And the purpose of public education is supposed to be to educate children to give them a future. We are robbing them of that future right now. And as a result, one of the things I want to see is I want to see school choice.
Yes.
I want that $20,000 to follow the student, because parents have not only a responsibility but a right that if their children are not being properly educated by the public school system, they are responsible to educate those children. So they should not have to pay out of their own pockets for private schools or for homeschooling their children when they're already paying taxes to a failed school system.
So you want to empower the parents to have more involvement, not less involvement.
Absolutely. It all starts in the home.
Amen.
It all starts in the home. Education starts with your parents. And that has to be the way we do things. And parents have to be involved in those decisions. Because if they're not, we're just going to continue to fail our students. And we can't do that.
With Maryland being blue,
Yep.
even blue people get tired of being ran over.
Yes, they do.
People. I don't even want to keep saying, us versus them at this point, because there's been so many that left their side. There's only 20% of the extremists left on the Democratic ticket.
Yeah.
Blue dog Democrat don't mean the same as it used to when I was growing up and my mom was trying to explain to me politics.
Yep.
You have the best opportunity at this time in Maryland to change it and turn it around, or at least pivot it before it's a failure.
Well, I think we do. I really think you're right there, because the problems that I'm talking about here are not Republican problems. They're not Democrat problems. They're not independent problems. They're Maryland problems. They cross across all political boundaries. And every Marylander wants the same things. They want lower taxes. They want good public schools. They want public safety so that when they're walking down the street at night, they don't have to worry about getting murdered or robbed. Every Marylander deserves to have these things. And it doesn't matter if you're a Democrat, Republican, or non-affiliated independent. It doesn't matter. You want the same things.
Here's a great slogan. No one wants to be broke nor broken. Vote for
John Myrick.
What is always the first thing that people worry about? The kitchen.
Absolutely.
I would run it from there. Not illegals,
Nope.
not anything else, because if they can't survive, if they cannot eat, nothing else matters.
You're right. And economic opportunities, they just did a poll in Baltimore City, which is our most populated area, last week. And the top 3 items that Baltimore City residents, and this was Democrats, Republicans, and Independents, it didn't matter. The top 3 items that they were worried about was economic opportunities and jobs. So that was first, the economy. Public schools, and then public safety. That was their 3 issues.
That's it.
That's all they cared about.
And that sounds like America first.
That's exactly what it is. That's America first. It's taking care of your people before anyone else. And if you fail at doing that, you have no business being there. And I've told you this before. Politicians talk about problems. Public servants solve them. I've spent my life as a public servant. I solve problems for a living. That's what I do. These problems are not insurmountable. And I would love to sit here and tell people that I can solve Maryland's problems on day one, but then I'd be a politician, because I'd be lying.
If it took all these years to create that issue, people need to understand it's not going to turn back around in a blink of an eye.
No, it's not. I cannot wave a magic governor's wand on day one and make it all better. It doesn't work that way. What I can do is I can start putting the pieces in place to put us on the right path, and working with the legislature, which I will, which is something that this governor doesn't bother to do because he doesn't think he has to do it. I will work with the Democrats and the Republicans in our state legislature to come up with an agenda that works for Marylanders. The people in Annapolis, Maryland, in our capital, forgot a long time ago that they work for Marylanders. They're there. They think they're there to rule over them, and they are not. The voters, the taxpayers, we are the bosses. I have never forgotten that as a public servant, and I never will forget that. And it's time Marylanders reminded those elected officials who they work for.
You might want to tell people, these legislators, that this is not Agenda 21, Agenda 30, or Agenda 45.
No.
You're not going to keep cataloging us, separating us, and then putting us somewhere. This is not how America works. We are a nation of the Constitution.
Exactly.
We are law and order, and we belong to no man. That's one thing that we are as Americans. We have sovereignty.
Exactly. And Marylanders, like all Americans, but Marylanders Marylanders have their own differing opinions, that Democrats and Republicans.
And accent.
And accent, they do. But they have different accents in different parts of Maryland even, so it's pretty funny. But Marylanders, they have common issues as well, and the common issues we've talked about affect all Marylanders. Now, the rest of it, we can talk about those kind of things. We can come to some understandings, and we can respect other people's opinions. We don't have to be fighting every time and every time something comes out of your mouth. And there are things I agree with some of my Democrat counterparts on, and some of my Democrat counterparts agree with things that I am proposing. I've been endorsed by Democrats. I have Democrats calling me every single day telling me that they will support my campaign because they can't afford to have this guy keep reaching into their pockets and taking their money.
That's true.
At this point, he's reaching in and all he's pulling out is lint. And we got to stop that.
And you are the man to stop it.
I can do that.
The team around you. Are you ready to build that team?
Absolutely. We are putting together an incredible team of people. I have an incredible team of people working with my campaign. We are already making plans for who will be sitting in some of these key seats in Annapolis in the administration when I am elected. And I seriously think that we are assembling the absolute most effective, most qualified, most dedicated team of public servants that Maryland has ever seen. And they will make a difference. We will roll back some of these ridiculous regulations that the governor can simply sign. That's a stroke of a pen. Mm-hmm. We don't need the legislature to get rid of overreaching regulations. We can do that from the governor's mansion, and we will. I will work with where we need to work with the legislature. We will. And I've got people who are experts at working with the legislature who will be able to do that. We can right this ship. My concern, and many Marylanders' concern, is if this guy gets reelected, he has dug us such a deep hole, we may not be able to dig out of another 4 years of him digging.
That sounds like Illinois.
We are now worse than Illinois from a tax perspective.
Wow.
There are only 3 states in the union that have a higher tax burden than Maryland now: California, New York, and Connecticut. Illinois now has a less tax burden than Maryland does. Let that sink in for a second.
Or Pritzker ate it this either.
Yeah, he could have. Yeah. But
you know how dedicated he is. I want y'all to understand this. He got on the red eye. He got down here today, coming down here to support the NRA, and now he's jumping right back on the plane and headed right back to Maryland.
Yep.
You're gonna be tired about all of this.
I'm tired now, but you know what? That's okay. I will sleep. There'll be plenty of time for me to sleep when my work is done. When my work is done. Until then, my wife keeps me healthy and will keep pumping coffee into me as long as I have to. And we will keep at this. I mean, that's the other thing people don't understand. Our governor, his job is to be governor, mm-hmm. right? And part of that is running for re-election. So he's getting paid for that. I work a full-time job. And I go out and campaign every night and every weekend. So there is no time for sleep because Maryland's problems are too important to be wasted on sleep right now. I'll sleep later.
So everybody, y'all, thank y'all so much. No, it's not over. I just know he got places to go and people to actually go talk to and shake hands. And thank you for coming down.
Lucretia, I appreciate the invitation to come down. It was my pleasure to get on the plane and come on down.
Did you get the sword yet? Did you see the sword?
I did see the sword this morning.
You got a picture of it?
We got pictures of it. Yep. Beautiful. Again, Maryland history right here in Atlanta at the NRA convention.
Absolutely.
So yeah, there's a sword here that is a Maryland Revolutionary War sword that has good provenance behind it. Wonderful people over there curating it. It was great to see it.
Has there ever been an NRA convention in Maryland?
Of course not. Maryland is, and again, that's part of the problem that we can fix. Maryland's gun laws are some of the most restrictive in the nation. And some of those laws have actually been found to be unconstitutional, but they're still on the books.
Wow.
One of the things I will do is I will work with our Attorney General, whomever that is, because our Attorney General is up for re-election too. So whoever that Attorney General winds up being, I will work with our Attorney General to take a look at every law on Maryland's books, including our gun laws. And if those laws are unconstitutional, I will work with the Attorney General to make sure that they are taken out of Maryland statute. Because Maryland will be, and should be, a state that is based on the rule of law and based on the U.S. Constitution.
Amen. Did you go talk to Turning Point Action?
Actually, I've talked to Turning Point, not here today, but I've talked to Turning Point in Maryland. I will be speaking at Towson University, just outside of Baltimore, on the 6th of May at a Turning Point event. Mm-hmm. They have been very receptive and very helpful. I look forward to that. I'm working with college Republicans. I will be speaking this month with Maryland's NAACP, who are traditionally Democrat, but they have been gracious enough to extend an invitation for me to speak with them. Because again, our problems are not Republican or Democrat problems, they're Maryland issues. So I look forward to the opportunity to speak with them about Maryland issues and about how we move Maryland forward together.
Guess who just walked up behind you?
Okay.
Thank you much. And she is Turning Point.
Okay,
hey,
great.
Emery.
Hi.
You ready? Thank you so much, Governor. Future Governor.
Well, Governor works.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you for
Lucretia.
flying
I
down here
appreciate it.
too.
Not a problem. I
I'm about
enjoy
like
it.
you. My eyes are red. Are they turning?
You'll be okay.
We only got a couple of hours left.
There you go.
Hopefully my voice is gonna last before it ends that way. All right, everybody. Like I said, y'all make sure y'all get over there to Cash App. Lucretia Hughes 44. I think I said that. All right, come on, Emery. How you doing?
Wonderful.
Girl. Thank you.
Of course, of
How
course.
are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic.
How was it? How was it being here?
Oh, it's been phenomenal. We're running into